Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us.
It is the first Six Nations show of the season. We're less than 48 hours away from Ireland's opening game against Wales under what will be the closed roof at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. To look ahead to the opening weekend of the Championship, I'm delighted to be joined by the former Munster player Billy Holland. How are you keeping, Billy?
I'm very good, Nathan. Thanks for having me.
And Grand Slam winner, decade ago, Grace Davitt is with us as well. How are you keeping, Grace?
Oh, good, Nathan. I'm like a kid Christmas Eve before
Christmas
Santa
Eve
comes.
as we are right now. There's a lot to talk about. Team namings have been happening throughout the last few hours. Ireland have been over in Portugal all week undergoing a training camp, so that's where Andy Farrell named his team. And no doubt about the big story, no Tadhg Furlong for Ireland. He's been struggling with a calf injury, though he was seen training and it felt training fully this week, but he hasn't played for Leinster since the beginning of December, and that calf injury has ruled him out of the game in Cardiff. Coming in is Finlay Bealham for what will be his fifth international start. They're hopeful that Furlong will be back for the game against France next weekend. The team in full then: Andrew Porter, Dan Sheehan and Finlay Bealham in the front row, Tadhg Byrne alongside James Ryan in the second row, and then it's Peter O'Mahony, Josh van der Fleer and Quaylen Doris in the back row. Jamieson Gibson Park partners the captain Jonathan Sexton, then it's Stuart McCluskey and Gary Ringrose in the centre. James Lowe and Mac Hansen are the wingers, and Hugo Keenan at full back. The replacements: Rob Herring, Cian Healy, Tom O'Toole, Ian Henderson, Jack Conan, Conor Murray, Ross Byrne and Bundy Aki. Johnny, no doubt about the big story there then. Tadhg Furlong, everyone was hoping that he would just about make it. It hasn't quite happened, and while Finlay Bealham has been there and is up in 28 caps now and has plenty of experience, very little of it is from starting the game. And there have been struggles for Leinster over the last few weeks in the scrum as well, with Furlong not there. How big an issue is this for Ireland heading to Cardiff on Saturday?
It's maybe good timing in a World Cup year to get Finlay his first start in a Six Nations game. It's going to be a real test for him. I suppose you go back 2 years and you would have had Andrew Porter, who would have been filling in tighthead. So it is, tighthead is, you've got probably the best tighthead in the world as your starter, and it's always going to be difficult to match that behind him. But I think Finlay has been going well for Connacht. He's been, he's come up trumps every game he's played for Ireland. Ireland have brought him off the bench with 10-20 minutes to go, and he has made an impact. So going over somewhere like Cardiff this weekend under the pressure that Wales are under, it's going to be a totally different test for Finlay. And I think from Ireland's point of view, that strength and depth in the tight head position going into the World Cup and indeed the Six Nations is without a doubt a concern. So no better way to figure out where they're at by throwing them in there and seeing how it goes.
The last time that Tadhg Furlong missed games was 2 years ago in the Six Nations, and he missed the first two matches, Grace, against Wales and France, and Ireland were beaten in both of them. He came back for the final three and Ireland won all of them. Aside from Johnny Sexton, the feeling is he's the one irreplaceable player. Josh van der Fleer maybe World Player of the Year, but the depth is there in the back row if he was to end up missing out. Much like Sexton when he's not there, for Finlay Bealham, all eyes will be on his performance, but is it actually on those around him now to step up in that pack and protect Bealham in a way so that he can actually just slide through this game almost unnoticed?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, there's such strength around that team, and you look at the likes of Ryan in behind him. You have O'Mahony. Like, if he has a bit of a bad spell, they're going to bring their leadership, really support him. Drive his confidence. As we said, his confidence has been high with Connacht Player of the Match. In the last game, getting a hat trick, which doesn't happen very often. So for him to get that and to have such a strong team around him, Van der Fleer, it's just going to be so good for him to play. And like Sexton, we can't just be relying on him. It's going to be a long season. We have a World Cup. So Bealham is going to have to get that game under his belt. He's going to have to keep getting those match experience, and no better one than, the experience of this Welsh pack, who are really strong, really experienced. They'll know all the tricks of the trade. So I definitely think, as a pack, and with him in there, they will hold them together and give him the strength to drive on.
He does have in his back pocket as well brilliant performance in that second half against South Africa. He has any amount of experience through the years with Connacht. The fact that he's starting, Billy, is it more just actually a mental thing for Finlay Bealham, that it's a very different preparation, knowing 48 hours out that you're starting this game, rather than maybe getting a sense of what the scrum is like while you're sitting on the sidelines?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think from Finlay's point of view, he doesn't need to be Tadhg Furlong. He doesn't need to do anything differently from what he does with Connacht week in, week out, or what he's done with Ireland when he's come off the bench, and particularly that 40 minutes that you alluded to against South Africa. He needs to be very, very good from a set piece point of view and get his basics right, his defence, his breakdown, his carries. He doesn't need to be Tadhg Furlong, handing off 4 or 5 fellas barging up the pitch. So as long as his mentality is to get out there, do what he does well, and not try and reinvent the wheel, I think he'll be fine. As Grace said, there's plenty of experience in that pack. It's up to the other 7 fellas to maybe step up and take up some of Tadhg Furlong's workload. But they're different players. So as long as he doesn't try and recreate the wheel, I think Finlay is going to have a good outing. He's experienced enough as well. Finlay's been around the block a long time to know that, starting or subbing, it is a different mindset. You can learn a lot from the bench, particularly from something like the scrum. You can see what the opposition are doing a lot. But in this day and age, from an analysis point of view, both teams know what each opposition team is going to bring. Wales have had their team named for about a week at this stage, so there's going to be no surprises. So I wouldn't have any concerns about Finlay.
That idea that the teams know each other so well, and the fact that Warren Gatland is in, Gordon Darcy was on Monday Night Rugby and he was talking about potential championship winners and Ireland for a Grand Slam, and maybe it would be a good thing for Ireland if they didn't win the Grand Slam, if they were actually beaten, that if we figured out how teams can beat Ireland can then prepare heading into the World Cup, knowing maybe what their weakness is. Like, if you were sitting in an opposition camp this week, Grace, and you're looking at Ireland, where is the weakness? Where do you attack this Ireland team?
It's a really difficult one because they're not number 1 in the world for nothing. But I think that the key to them is, looking at their strengths and how fast they get the ball out and how much they can move that ball around. And I think what Wales are even trying to do tomorrow is trying to slow that ball, try and cut out that gain line, come up off the line, close them down early. We've seen how they dealt with South Africa and, that physicality, and really got over the gain line. So I think any of the teams are just going to have to try and cut them down early, stop that quick momentum and that movement of the ball. Their set piece is pretty set. Their line out's really good. They've great movement off that. Their back 3 are really solid, really good experience there. They're great under the high ball. They've got really good kickers, obviously Lowe's back in, who can clear his lines. But I think the key is just going to be in that breakdown. And if teams can disrupt that and disrupt the quick ball, I think that's where the momentum of a game can change.
What about you, Billy, if you were assessing where either Ireland can be got at or where Ireland can improve? As like Ireland, know that their performances of the last 2 years probably won't win them a World Cup. If they're trying to get to another level again, where are the areas do you think Farrell would have been working on over the last few weeks?
I think if you go back 4 years when Ireland were in a great position before the last Six Nations and before the World Cup, what teams figured out then is that if you stopped Ireland's set piece or their first 3 phase plays, their first 3 breakdowns, you got after Ireland the first breakdown, Ireland had nothing else. They had no other way of attacking. Whereas now Ireland are excellent from kick receipt, they're excellent from general attack phase, they've got great continuity to their game, so they're not over-reliant on one area of the game. Like, you look back to the France game in Paris last year, which was the last time Ireland were physically dominated, where you had a really, really big French team who were too physical for Ireland on the day. That's where Ireland will struggle. It's the only place I think that Ireland would ever struggle. So, some of it is just due to genetics of Irish, the makeup of Irish people. You're not going to be as big as some South African teams or French teams or, possibly even the English. But Ireland.
But that won't be Wales on Saturday.
Wales are closer to Ireland from a genetics point of view. So if Ireland are in the right frame of mind for this game on Saturday, they won't be found wanting from a physicality point of view, and therefore I don't see any way of Ireland losing a game against Wales, given in the certain circumstances. You asked me, how can Ireland improve? There's no area. I think what Ireland have done really well over the last 12 months is having incremental improvements week in, week out. And you listen to what Andy Farrell says after games, and it doesn't focus on the opposition, doesn't focus on the uncontrollables. He just focuses on his own team, them getting better week after week after week, building confidence, building momentum. And I thought it was a very good documentary, the one from over New Zealand, and their mentality after the second test, where previous teams would have just rested on their laurels. They saw an opportunity to make history, and they celebrated and then got back on the horse and improved again the following week. So this Six Nations for me is about Ireland getting incremental improvements and making sure they're I suppose in the right mindset where they don't get physically beaten up on the day, which you can control by being in the right frame of mind.
Looking at the rest of the 15, Grace, there's such stability now around the squad. We're not expecting any major shocks. One of the big decisions was probably in the centre alongside Gary Ringrose with Robbie Henshaw injured. Now, it's not surprising that he's stuck with McCluskey, considering how McCluskey played during November, and despite the fact Ulster struggled, he's managed to maintain his own personal form, and Bundy Aki hasn't been playing any rugby, but Aki has done it every time he's been called upon for Ireland. Is this a slight changing of the guard in terms of that third choice centre?
I think for McCluskey to start at 12 is pretty good. He's not as versatile as Bundy. He isn't, like, Ulster haven't been on form. They haven't had great games. The last couple, they've probably, picked it up a bit, which was good. But McCluskey had, during them autumn internationals, he played really well. Obviously got that shoulder injury and had to go off. But, he had some big physical hits. He had some really good carries, and he's a real good playmaker. And like that, what a place to be dropped in. You've Sexton inside you, and you've Ringrose, who's just coming into amazing form outside you. So, if you look at the longer game and you look preparing for a World Cup, it is good that McCluskey's in there. And I think he's earned that, from those autumn internationals. Yes, we've seen Bundy come on and score a try in those when he wasn't starting, but there's obviously something going on at Connacht. He had that ban for the high tackle or the red card, and then, he hasn't been playing for Connacht. So on form and on the amount of rugby being played, you kind of say, yeah, good on McCluskey. And then you look at Osborne, and he came on that URC, and people were kind of ruling him out because he was so small and he had huge hits in. So it'd be good to see him being blooded. Not in the first game. I think McCluskey's there. He has that tiny bit of experience, so why not give him a go? And then Bundy's on the bench. If it isn't going well or he is struggling, Bundy can come on and make that huge impact, and he can change the momentum of a game, especially from the bench.
It does show the depth when you look at the players that aren't even in the 23 now, Billy, and maybe that's a bigger decision for Andy Farrell as he goes through this, as to who are the replacements as much as the 15. Even along that back line, you look at Jamie Osborne, Jimmy O'Brien, Jacob Stockdale, Jordan Larmour, Keith Earls, none of them making the matchday 23. In the back row as well, like Ryan Bird, who we've been all raving about for weeks, doesn't even make the matchday 23. When you look at the balance of particularly Jack Conan getting in there among the replacements, and the fact that there is no place for Ryan Bird, that it's Conan and Henderson, what do you think is the thinking behind that from Farrell's point of view, that they're the two he's gone with? Two Lions, so it's not the wildest selection of all time.
It's what every coach wants. These sort of selection headaches, and they are selection headaches. So it's a good problem for Andy Farrell to have. You can't get away from the fact that Ireland haven't won in Wales in 10 years. This game will require experience. There's games where you can blood some of these fellas. Wales away in a tournament that requires momentum from the get-go, with all the carnage that's been happening over in Wales, Gatland back in. It's a game that does require a bit of experience. I don't think it would have been the right game to blood someone like Osborne, who I'd love to see get capped. You could say the same with Bird and a few other fellas. It's a game that requires. Plus, these guys you're talking about, like Jack Conan and Henderson, they're playing well. These fellas, so they're the incumbent players, and there is a bit of loyalty that's required at international level, where you got to kind of continue on from where you left off in the autumn internationals as much as possible. But first game up, haven't won in Wales in 10 years, it is important to start right. Whereas if you got off to an iffy start, you could be under a bit of pressure, and all of a sudden your momentum goes out the window, and you're in a difficult position. So I think they're all the right calls from an experience point of view. You could say Craig Casey's been ahead of Conor Murray in Munster rugby, but like, Conor has done absolutely nothing wrong for Ireland and Munster. He is the type of guy who's going to come on and close out a game or win you a game with 10, 20 minutes to go. And his experience will be invaluable over summer over in Blenheim Stadium.
Yeah, 101st cap it'll be for Conor Murray at the weekend. Like Billy, when we talk about Wales, on paper it's very hard to make a case for them beating Ireland, but history suggests, as you say, 10 years since we've won in Cardiff, and the Warren Gatland's factor that just puts the fear of God into us. They've made a late change, so Lee Halfpenny's been taken out of the team through injury. He's going to be replaced at full back by Liam Williams. There's a lot of the old heads still in that starting 15, and some of the younger talents like Louis Rees-Zammit are missing through injury as well. Like, they only won one game last year. Is it just the Gatland factor that makes you feel this isn't a comfortable win for Ireland?
It's very hard to tell. I think any team that has Alan Wynne-Jones and Dan Bigger and not Lee Halfpenny, but Liam Williams at full back is going to be difficult to beat. There's been, off the pitch, there's been so much trouble, and I think, not from a player's point of view, from a back office point of view, but I think that sometimes galvanizes a squad like that, and it's a case of you all come together and you create a culture where you're going to be very resilient, and you're going to make yourself very hard to beat, and you're going to bring back a bit of pride. And the funny thing is, from any Irish player who's ever been coached by Gatland, he's not a technical coach. He isn't. A lot of them struggle to see how he gets the kudos that he gets, and he gets such success out of what he gets out of in Wales. So he clearly has some sort of...
He gets it by winning all of the time.
Yeah, but how? He's a head coach who isn't like a Joe Schmidt or an Andy Farrell from a technical point of view, yet he seems to get the best out of these players, and it's probably by empowering these players. There's a lot of experienced, talented players within that Welsh squad that he probably empowers, and there's a great sense of probably respect and responsibility, kind of two-way street between them. And he's always going to go back to his experienced boys, because they're going to perform for him. It's going to be no difference this weekend. I just think Ireland are too good for that. I think Ireland are a step too far, but you don't have Warren Gatland in there at the weekend, and you could be talking about Ireland having a walk in the park, but definitely not the case at the moment.
Yeah, it does feel, Grace, that we sort of know what Ireland are going to come with at this stage. There's a level of consistency that they're bringing to matches. It is just that Gatland, because, as Billy's saying, it's not a technical thing, it's not going to be a complete tactical overhaul. He's going to say the right things to all of these players during the week, so that when they go out onto the pitch on Saturday, they do truly believe that they can achieve something. And it's probably then on Ireland just to be mentally ready for that first 15, 20 minutes and show Wales that, well, talent-wise, they're still a bit behind.
Yeah, it's a lift, isn't it? You've been struggling. You've lost all games bar one in the Six Nations after winning a Six Nations, so you've fallen off a cliff. You have a series like that last game in the Six Nations. They were winning against Italy. Italy beat them in Principality Stadium. They will not want to be going back there and losing the next match in the Six Nations. They've all the series, they did really poorly in the last couple of games. Their last win was against Argentina. So they'll be really, really hurting. And I think just even Gatland coming in, it's someone familiar, as Billy says there. It mightn't be that he's not going to be able to bring in any structures and support so quickly. But it's the fact that it's a little bit of hope. It's going, we've been really struggling. We've been losing a lot of games. And it's just that hope, and it'll give you that drive and positivity to go, actually, we can do this. And I have a feeling that they'll come out all guns blazing, have all those experienced players, a couple of inexperienced, but not much. But I think Ireland will wear them down. I think the speed of Ireland, I think the strength of Ireland and the depth, like there's 5 lions on the Irish bench. Like that's unbelievable to come in off the bench and make a difference. So I think it will be short-lived. I think they'll have that bit of positivity, and I'm hoping pretty quickly Ireland, knock it out of them and create their own momentum. Because as you say, Ireland have been consistent. They've been consistent even through the autumn internationals when they have blooded new players and got the likes of Crowley on and McCluskey. So with this solid team, I think it's just going to build that foundation. And he's going to want, Farrell's going to want that consistency coming into France, and a home game against France is your best opportunity to beat them. So he's going to want to make sure that they have a good performance against Wales.
How are you calling it, Grace?
Oh, Ireland all day.
Are we talking by a score or by several?
I really do think they can wear them down. Halfpenny was there at 15, but Liam Williams is a real threat. But I think just the kicking ability of Halfpenny gone, I think Ireland can really put them under pressure. I'd say I'm hoping 10 points. I'm hoping like 2 tries difference.
Billy?
I think Ireland will win by double digits. I think they'll win by in around 10, 12 points. I think it'll be a high scoring game. I think you'll see Wales scoring a few tries. Hopefully it'll be an entertaining game, but I think Ireland will pull away at the end. There's too many issues in Welsh rugby at the moment, and Ireland are too much form. I think they'll when it comes to it, I think Ireland's bench is too good as well. But they'll kick on at the end and win by, I'll say 12.
All right, very specific, exactly what we wanted. So a 2:15 start on Saturday for Wales against Ireland, with a full coverage on Saturday's show. Aisling O'Reilly and Gordon Darcy are going to be at the Millennium Stadium for us. You are watching the Six Nations show with Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us. The second game on Saturday is England against Scotland at Twickenham at 4:45. Steve Borthwick, first game in charge as head coach of England. Winger Ollie Hassel-Collins is going to make his England debut in that game. No place for Manu Tuilagi in the matchday 23. Joe Marchand starts at outside centre. Owen Farrell at 12. Marcus Smith at fly half. Grace, this is one of the peculiarities of this year's Six Nations, that we're in a World Cup year, but we're starting out with new coaching tickets who are only getting a few days, barely even weeks, to try and work on something new. And a lot of the talk around England was, could Farrell potentially revert back to number 10? He's sticking with Marcus Smith. We saw that Vunipola was dropped from the squad. Tuilagi's not in the 23 now. Little signs of a quick fire change in England?
Yeah, and it's just not knowing what to expect. It's all the same players, but they have all on paper that they should be a really good team, and then they just haven't fired last year. So it's going to be interesting. It's the same sort of thing, positivity, change. We don't know how Jones was getting on in there, but are they going to come out and surprise us all? And I think Marcus Smith is good at 10, and Farrell, and having those two playmakers on the pitch is, a good way of moving the ball around. But it's going to be interesting. Nobody knows what it's going to be like.
Billy, is this a move away from just a pure power game of the Eddie Jones era? The fact that Tuilagi, who come hell or high water always seemed to be in that starting team regardless of his form.
Yeah, it probably is. Look, it hasn't worked for England, the power game. I don't think they've got the personnel, the players to play the power game. And look, Marcus Smith is a really exciting out half. You've got Owen Farrell at 12. I like the look of the team. Borthwick will be well renowned to be one of the best coaches around in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's going to be a huge challenge for them to kick on, but it's starting against Scotland. It's going to be a really exciting game. I think England-Scotland games are always very very physical, entertaining games. So I think it's going to be a great game.
No Ben Healy in the Scotland squad. He's obviously just joined up with them, so they're holding fire a little bit with the Munster man. So Finn Russell, that love-hate relationship he seems to have with, well, pretty much everybody. It's a loving relationship right now with the Scottish coaching team. He's going to start at number 10. Scotland, because of everything that's going on with Wales and England, have sort of flown under the radar a little bit, and there have been flashes, and there's always flashes of progress and then setbacks again. Billy, where do you feel they are a couple of days out from the Six Nations?
I just personally feel that Scotland are, every year, every tournament, they show flashes of brilliance and just flashes of really soft underbelly. I think they're a mentally weak team because they never seem to back it up. I personally would never have a fear of Scotland. Yes, on their day, they can probably beat anyone in the world, but they'll never do it 2 weeks in a row. Whatever it is about them, I don't know. Maybe it's just that group of players, and maybe it's a little bit harsh. So I think on their day, yeah, they can do something, but they just don't back it up. In any tournament in the last however many years, Six Nations, Autumn Internationals, World Cup, they just don't back up good performances. I don't know what it is from a performance point of view. They seem to really not have that mental strength to kick on. It's certainly not talent, it's not skill, it's not physicality. Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. You could call it mental weakness, but yeah.
Like that, it's hard to disagree with that, Grace, because like it wouldn't shock anybody if Scotland went and won at the weekend, and then the following week when they went back to Murrayfield to play Wales, ended up losing that one. I guess we're looking at it very much from green eyes and a World Cup, and worrying that they'll have one of those on days when we come up against them. It's so hard to read anything into their performances week in, week out as to what it means when it comes to a World Cup match.
Yeah, exactly, and a lot lies on Finn Russell as well, and his consistency and how he's playing, and whether he's in good form or whether he's off the edge of your seat sort of rugby where he's grubbering through or kicking the ball away. But it's really difficult to tell, and it's they seem to get themselves up for some matches, and then as Billy was saying, it's just the consistency. It's like, if they could hold that mental game and they go, yeah, we've got that one. And as we were saying about Farrell with Ireland, they're like, yeah, we beat New Zealand. Let's tweak little things. Let's get the 1% in the ruck. Let's get the tackle, get up on the ground quicker. Let's get, the line out a little bit sharper and keep building that continuous improvement. Whereas I think Scotland, because they get it so seldom that they build themselves up for it, they get it. And then they're just so busy celebrating and enjoying that moment that they're not going, yeah, that's good, let's be better. It's kind of like they sit back and enjoy the win too much.
Gregor Townsend has been love bombing Finn Russell this week. Like, that is the ultimate love-hate relationship. He was dropped at the start of the Autumn Internationals. Billy comes back in and is brilliant against Argentina. When you watch Scotland and getting the best out of Finn Russell, which seems to be when Scotland at their best, is that the rest of the team giving him the platform? Is that the pack performing, giving him the platform, and that allows him to be his best self? Or actually, is he such a sort of totemic figure within that squad that he needs to be on it for everybody else to be able to play to their best?
I think when Finn Russell has go forward ball, which the pack and your centres will deliver, he's very difficult to stop. So yes, he's a mercurial talent who's excellent some weeks, but not every week. So when his team are dominant, it's chicken and egg scenario, which comes first. I think Finn Russell isn't the type of player, I think, who's going to get the rest of the team out of a hole. Quality players like Johnny Sexton and Rowan O'Gara or Owen Farrell, they get their teams out of holes when they're not at their very best, when the rest of the team aren't at their very best. Finn Russell doesn't have that. Finn Russell, I think, when his team are dominant or have like parity, I think he comes into his own then, and he's just one of the best in the world. But if they don't, he doesn't have that He doesn't seem to change the momentum too frequently when his team are under pressure.
Sunday then, it is Italy against France. France had an unbelievable 2022, go through the entire season unbeaten, have a few injury problems, but Grace, Italy are a bit of a mess at the moment. Wooden spoon last year, their coach questioning the club setup, that just lots of their players aren't getting game time even at club level right now. They have injury problems themselves, most notably Paolo Garbisi, a huge blood. He's going to miss the first couple of matches. This is the ideal way for France to ease themselves into the competition, or can you make any case for Italy?
No, not really. You know, they're living off the back of that win against Wales, which was the last grasp at the end of the Six Nations. I just can't see. France are just too powerful up front, too strong. You know, yeah, they have the depth. Fair enough, the clubs aren't getting the game time and the players aren't getting the game time, but they have such depth over so many years. You look at Italy, they're just in their infancy. You know, I just don't see it. It's Samson and Goliath, isn't it? It's just they're too big a fish, especially for your first match. You'd say, right, fair enough. It's catch-22. Italy gets someone like Scotland the first match. You know, they're all fresh. You know, it is a good opportunity against France when they're all fresh, because we see how quickly, you know, they lose players, or the fact that they've already lost. Garbisi is huge, because it's when it gets later in the Six Nations and they lose more players, then they find more difficulties. So, but I think France is just too strong a start for them. Yeah,
Billy, Italy had that famous victory, and every victory they seem to have at the moment, it's going to be a famous one. The changing coach, like Kieran Crowley's been talking about, you know, Netflix cameras are in and we want to show that rugby is an exciting game. It's become quite boring to watch in general, and I want this Italian side to show all that's good about rugby, to have that bit of flair. It's an easy thing to say, it's a very difficult thing to do when you're starting a game against France.
Yeah, here's hoping that they get out and they throw the ball around and they try and use some of their individual players who've got great speed and strength, and you know, it'll make for good television. But I think they just don't have the when in my opinion, when a country's going well, it's because their clubs are going well. You look at Ireland over the last couple of years, the provinces are always going well. France always have that strength and depth, and now they've got a good, you know, structure at a national level. Italy, you know, Zebra just plugged to the bottom of the URC, and yeah, Treviso will have they're different and they're better, but there just isn't the right structures for them on a weekly basis to, you know, produce players who have a consistent ability to perform, even from a set piece point of view. You know, they'll have a scrum that'll go well in one scrum and not in another, and it must be so frustrating to coach. So yeah, their best chance against someone like France is just to throw the ball around and really throw caution into the wind and hope that France kind of let their guard down a little bit and they get away from the type of game they're trying to play. You know, but it's a challenge. You know, I feel sorry for a lot of the people who end up in managerial positions in Italy. I think until they get enough support and structures in place, they're gonna really struggle. But you know, here, as I said, here's hoping for an entertaining game on Sunday. But I'm not going to be holding my breath.
Overall, then, as we prepare to start the tournament, Billy, where do you see Ireland finishing? What's a good tournament?
Grand Slam. I think Ireland have to be aiming for a Grand Slam. You know, it's I would call it the favourable year, where you've got France and England at home, and you've got Scotland, Italy, and Wales away. There's no reason Ireland, as number one ranked team in the world and a team going into a World Cup where they do have ambitions to win it, and they absolutely do. I think momentum is really important. I think confidence, momentum, all these things. And for them to win a Grand Slam, they will have to improve on what they did in New Zealand, which was exceptional and historic. But I think that anything other than Ireland, and this is incredible, isn't it, to be talking about it on the
Billy, you can have, you know what it's like. You can have too much momentum. You can have too much confidence if we were to win the Grand Slam.
No, I think this Irish team under Andy Farrell is a different beast. I think it's totally different to 4 years ago. Whereas, you lose at home to France or England, or you get scuppered away from home or scuttled away from home by one of the other lesser teams, and it'll create little doubts. It'll also create, Ireland go over and play Scotland. If they beat Scotland, that's another another bullet in their armory when they play Scotland in the World Cup. They just it's a psychological warfare where you convince Scotland before they even get in the field that Finn Russell knows that it's going to be a tough day out, and it's kind of going to be, they're underdogs, but you're just giving a team no glimmer of hope. You're trying to shut that out from them, and it's continuous. It starts on Saturday for me, the prep for the World Cup, in terms of building towards that. Plus, it's not like Ireland have a whole lot of Grand Slams. You got to look and you got to say, let's not look too far ahead and kind of say we have an opportunity to build on historic wins over in New Zealand and win a Grand Slam for Ireland in 2023. Forget about the World Cup for a minute and just say, let's just do that. Blood players at the right time, bring Osborne in the right time in the right game. Same with a couple of the other lads. Do it at the right time. Build your squad. You've got Finlay Bealham playing his first game this week, starting his first Six Nations game. So it's a great opportunity to build on history and win a Grand Slam.
See, Grace, this is a no-nonsense approach from Billy Holland that the Munster fans grew to love over the years. Let's go and win it all. Why are we overthinking this? Just go win the Grand Slam. Worry about what it'll mean afterwards. What's your sense of what Ireland can achieve over the next 6 weeks?
I understand what you're saying about, have a wee loss and then you kind of have to rebuild. But as we said, the way Farrell is, they are constantly building, they are constantly growing. And I think the fact, when you saw them even against Australia and they were losing, they were having a bad game, and they really dug in deep and they came back and they got the win. And it just showed how the different ways that they can play rugby, that they can have real off the cuff. They've a bit more freedom now under Farrell how they play, and they're able to get really good, exciting wins, but they're able to grind back and get a win. And I still think, as Billy says, if they get the Grand Slam, it's not going to be easy. They're not going to bring France over here and just walk over them. It's still going to be physical. They're still going to have to get their set piece right. They're still going to have to come up hard in defence to make sure that they have those good performances. But I think the psychological side of it, if they go in as, top team in the world, they've beat New Zealand, they've shown that consistency, they've beaten the World Cup champions, South Africa, and to then win a Grand Slam, beat Scotland, as you say, who's going to be in their group, and go to France for the World Cup going, yeah, we've got this, we've nailed it, we've built strength, we've built depth, we did it without Tadhg Furlong, we did it with Sexton, with getting Byrne in there or getting Crowley in. So it is. I don't think it's an out and out, let's just keep the same 22 all Six Nations. I think it's making sure that you give those players opportunity and make sure that we don't rely on those individuals. But the fact that we've such strength, like Jimmy O'Brien missed out, but you've James Lowe in, there's just so many combinations. And if Henshaw is going to be back by the time the World Cup, imagine that depth. So I think there is no harm in winning the Six Nations. It will give them the psychological advantage going into the World Cup, and they will feel invincible. And not only will they feel invincible, but if something happens, the uncontrollable, like somebody important gets injured, I think they will have that mental strength to go, yeah, that's okay. We've practiced this. We've had enough game time that we can manage without a certain player.
All right, Grace. Thank you very much, Billy Holland. Enjoy the weekend. We got a couple of Grand Slams from both of you. We're all very positive heading into this game, and as I said, we'll be at the Millennium Stadium on Saturday. Full coverage. Gordon Darcy and Aisling O'Reilly there. Enjoy your weekend, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan.
And the Vodafone Six Nations show, they are the main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us. Six Nations show with you every Thursday throughout the Six Nations.
The Six Nations Show on OTB Sports Radio.
With Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us.
It's spinning! It's spinning!
Can you come on and talk about Ireland's attack shape? It's really exciting.
I've never seen a team like Ireland before.
We all still think to this day that it's the right call and we're the ones out on the pitch.
OTB Sports Radio.